Today on Commander Replay, we check out Dalakos, Crafter of Wonders, and we ask the question, are Izzet equipments better than Boros equipments? Well, I don't know. Is it? Find out next on Commander Replay. I want to thank my awesome Patreon supporters. We have one new Patreon supporter in Aaron Goodrum. Aaron, you are awesome. If you want to help support the channel and vote on which decks I play next, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below, and be sure to use the TCG affiliate player link as it helps support the channel and it doesn't cost you anything. Welcome back everyone, playing some Dalakos Crafter of Wonders today. Take a look at this opening hand. It's not the best, but I've been thinking about it for a moment, and I think with the Scry Temple and the fact that Sword of the Animus is going to get us ramp, and that Valduk can make additional creatures for us, I think it's actually okay. Like, it's not the best hand I've ever seen, but there is a reasonable amount of card draw in this deck, so as long as we find one of those good pieces of card draw at some point, should be fine. I do like having mana. I do like the fact that Sword of the Animus will ramp us more and shuffle our library just in case all of our lands are pocketed at the top, which does happen occasionally on Magic Online. There's a Trophy Mage. Okay, so that's something with a little bit of action to it. I guess we just go for the tap land first and get a Scry. Scalding Tarn on top, gonna put that one to the bottom. Only one red source in hand, which could bite us. This deck is kind of heavy on the basics. So I should point out that the original deck list was designed by a Patreon supporter, Maru Powell, but I did make about, I don't know, maybe 10 or so changes to the deck, to the point where it's starting to become my own a little bit, but I did want to give him credit where credit is due. I really do like a lot of removal, a lot of ramp, and added in some other stuff as well. Got rid of a couple pieces that I didn't think would be quite as effective. Also upgraded the mana base a little bit to have fetches, shocks, duels, all that sort of good stuff, just to up the consistency a little bit. I don't actually know if there's any double red source cards in the deck. We can take a look. There is one, which is Magma Quake, that I added later on. So all in all, we should be okay on one red mana for a good chunk of the game. Shouldn't bother us too much. Gahiji does lay down a Windbrisk Heights, and they get to hide away. But that does bring it back to our turn, and we draw a Thassa Deep Dwelling. Not exactly sure why this one's in the deck. I mean, I guess it can just be super annoying to tap down your opponent's stuff, which seems cool. I guess you can also blink these mages, which seems pretty reasonable. But yeah, seems like a solid card. Anyway, let's go ahead and play this island, I guess, and then we'll get the S word into play. And pass turn like that. So, taking a look at Dalakos. Dalakos is 1 blue-red for a 2/4. You tap it to add 2 colorless mana. Spend that mana to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. Equip creatures you control have flying and haste. So an interesting commander in that this is new design space for Izzet, which is the ability to synergize with equipments. And it kind of makes sense that red has a couple equipment cards here and there, but blue has a lot of artifact matter cards. So it doesn't seem like it's that far of a stretch. However, I'm maybe a little bit less happy about the fact that, like, equipments is the one thing that white does really well and does better than every other color. So part of me feels like a little bit betrayed that they gave that to blue or blue-red. So, I don't know. It's cool for Izzet and people that like to play Izzet that now they have a new option available to them. But as a predominantly white X player, I do feel a little bit betrayed by it. So, I'll just have to get over that at some point. Anyway, while I was doing all that talking, Fish lays down a Kataki's War Wage, which is terrible for this deck. Like, awful. That's, like, literally one of the worst things we could see. This is probably going to mess up like every single thing we do from here on out. So hopefully someone plays some removal. There is a Toshiro at the table. That should be a pretty removal-heavy deck. It's going to bring it back to our turn. We do have an upkeep on the Sword of the Animus now. I think we're just going to go ahead and pay for it. It's going to slow down pretty much everything that we're doing, and that feels awful, but that is what it is. So pay 1 to prevent. There's some Lightning Greaves. Yeah, I mean, I'm just not going to play those. Yeah, it would just be bad to play those. So let's get this mountain into play. And pretty much everything we want to do costs 3 mana, so I guess we are waiting another turn. Gonna slow this game down. There's a Hushbringer. Come on, Blasphemous Act. Opponent going on the attack with the Kataki's War Wage into the Erebos. So let's take a look at what our opponents are playing. First up, we have Fish Said Fish piloting Gahiji Honored One, and it looks like they're doing a Hate Bear Stacks aggro kind of deck is the impression that I'm getting here. Also, Fish really does like to play a lot of mono white stacks to begin with, so it's not surprising that this may be a very hate bear heavy kind of deck. And hate bears have an interesting effect on the game. So like, you know, I know a lot of people don't like to play against stacks. However, with the game getting a lot faster and a lot stronger over the past like year or two, I think stacks is much more warranted than it ever used to be. Because with the ability to build basically any deck as like a turn 6 deck if you want to now, playing interaction, playing removal is what stops the game from ending on turn 5 or turn 6. The fact that now these stacked pieces are in play is annoying and it slows us down, but it's what also kind of allows the game to go into turn 8, turn 10, something like that. And I really prefer games that go into that 8 to 10 range. And, you know, sometimes it's cool to get a game that goes longer than that, too. I don't see it happen so much anymore because there's just so much power available in the game. Unless you, like, force everyone to discard their hands and, like, just everyone runs out of gas, it is pretty tough to force the game to go that late now. Especially if anyone's playing any semblance of powerful cards. Like, if you're playing any powerful cards at all, eventually they find a way to do things in the game and can eventually take over the game. Now, if you're playing like precons or, you know, jank or, you know, just decks that aren't optimized super well, don't have tons and tons of powerful cards in them, then, you know, yeah, you might have games that go 12 or 15 turns more regularly, but in general, I'm really looking for games that go about 8 to 10 turns. That's where I like to be. I think that's the most interesting space where it's fun. You get to do a lot of cool things without the problem of the game going super long and at the point where you just want it to be over. So anyway, opponent's going to lay down this Liliana's Triumph. It says each opponent sacrifices a creature. If you control a Liliana Planeswalker, each opponent also discards a card. Lucky for us, no Liliana Planeswalker at this moment, but this is a Toshiro deck, so we'll probably see this again later when there is potentially a Liliana Planeswalker in play, so we'll need to be careful of that. And I guess with that being the case, we'll talk about what they're playing. This is GVR, and he is piloting Toshiro Umezawa. If you guys don't remember this one, it says, whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you may cast target instant card from your graveyard. If that card would be put into the graveyard this turn, exile it. Essentially, whenever a creature an opponent control dies, you get flashback on your instants. So this is going to be a deck that's probably got like 42 instant speed kill spells in it. And it's going to make it really tough to keep creatures in play. So this Lightning Greaves in our hand is going to be very useful once this Katakis goes down. With all that, that brings it back to our turn. We get another Sword of the Animus trigger that we got to pay for. We'll go ahead and do that. There's a Kazul's Toll Collector. That is an interesting one. At some point, we could potentially go like Lightning Greaves into Kazul's. Could be interesting. We've got the Trophy Mage also. That can find a lot of cool things for us. I think I'm waiting on that one. I don't think I'm just there yet. Let's get an island into play. Start with the land. That's the easiest part. The next question is, we could go for our commander. We could get Dalakos. We could also go for the Valduk. Which is better? And also the question is, which is the one that I care least about getting shot? I'm going to try Dalakos. Still a lot of cards in hand for the Toshiro players, so like perhaps removal of plenty. If we can get Valduk into the late game with a few things on it, then that seems much better than just playing it right now and getting it shot by something. So that's the route that I'm going with right here. I'm sort of anticipating that there's just going to be removal that happens. Plus, our commander does make mana, which is a big thing. And, you know, just getting that additional mana production, even if it's only for artifacts, still going to be pretty relevant. There's a Rampaging Ferocidon for opponent. That one is got some really nasty wording on it. First off, it starts with Menace. Got to have that casual Menace in there. But players can't gain life. That's a pretty big one. And then finally, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, Rampaging Ferocidon deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. Pretty nasty. Against like token decks, against any sort of creature deck, really. Ferocidon can do a lot of damage and stops the ability to gain that life back. It's good. It's a good card. Here comes a Dark Ritual for the Toshiro opponent. Let's see what they got. Gonna cast their commander, and looks like they'll probably equip the boots to it. Chaotix can activate the old Makokoro, Center of the Sea. Each player gets to draw a card. We draw a Psy Master Thopterus. Cool. And we'll talk about what Chaotix is playing. He is piloting Erebos Black-Hearted. Is 4 mana 5/6, indestructible, not a creature if your devotion to black is less than 5. Whenever another creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life. If you do, draw a card. And then you may pay 1 and a black to sacrifice a creature. Target creature gets -2/-1 until end of turn. Pretty interesting. Looks like it's probably going to be some sort of token or aristocrat style deck with a lot of sacrificing stuff going on. And if you pay 2, you can shoot another creature, and then you pay 2 life to draw a card while you do it. Seems like, it kind of seems like both halves of an engine all built into one card, so I don't know. I see a lot of potential there. I don't know exactly what the lines look like in that deck or what the specific combos are, but I can definitely see it being a problem as the game gets going, so we'll need to be careful of that. And there's a Whip of Erebos coming down for Chaotix. So it brings back to our turn. Still got that upkeep on Sword of the Animist. Let's pay for the upkeep. There's a Godo. Godo's a pretty good one, right? Play the island. Start there. I think this is really just going to be a turn about playing Sword of the Animist, playing Lightning Greaves. Maybe not the most exciting thing ever, but we've kind of already started on the Sword of the Animist path, so I think that's just the way we go with it. And then we'll play the Lightning Greaves, try to avoid our commander being shot. This does also give our commander Flying and Haste, which are pretty relevant abilities. And I think Fish is going to be the biggest headache for us, especially with the Katakis in play, so I think we're just going over that way. Sword of the Animist will trigger. Let's get a second mountain just so we have it. We do have quite a bit of blue mana already. And that'll get in for 3. We'll pass the turn like that. Here comes a Sky Shroud claim for opponent. And Fish coming back at us. This is going to be a hit for 5. I kind of thought that might happen, but it's worth getting the Sword of the Animist trigger. We will work to start getting some blockers into play on our next turn, I think. I also would not be sad to see the Magma Quake that I put into this deck. But who knows? Maybe Toshiro will get tired of having to pay for the artifacts, so might see some removal in this direction. Gonna see a Primal Amulet first, but that will also have an upkeep, but does reduce the cost of spells, and when it flips over, gives you mana and doubles the spell. Pretty good. Chaotix turn, he pays for the Whip of Erebos. Witch's Cottage. Take a look at this one. It's one out of Throne of Eldraine. Still not super comfortable with it. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more other swamps. When it enters the battlefield untapped, you may put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. So right now he's just needing the land drop. But that returning creature effect is pretty strong. And, the one thing I'll say is that it feels like White kind of got shafted in the cycle of cards that they made like that. So he does lay a Underworld Connections onto it. Nice little way to draw some cards. Anyway, that's going to bring it back to our turn. We get 2 upkeep triggers now, Sword of the Animist and the Lightning Greaves. I think I'm going to go blue and a red, just kind of split the mana up that way. That's a Sword of Sinew and Steel. We do not have the mana to get that in currently. What shall we do is the question. You can play the Sai. It says whenever we cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 Thopter with flying. That would be cool. You can also cast Thassa. We can basically cast almost all the cards in our hand except Godo. I think it might be on the Trophy Mage right here. I don't know. We'll see. I guess Thassa is the most mana efficient. Yeah, let's just go for the Thassa. Most mana efficient. Seems like a good play. It's not going to do much for the blocking situation that I had mentioned. Once Upon a Time. I don't even know what this card does, but I feel like it should. If this spell is the first spell you've cast this game, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Not relevant. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land from among them. Put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay. Doesn't impact us that much, but we'll see what creature they get. Okay, they just go for land, Misfell Plains. That is fine with me. We'll take a little hit over to Chaotix, just maybe to try to get Fish off my back for a moment. Prefer to not take another hit right here if I don't have to. We'll get an island this time. He'll take a hit for 3. No legal targets for the Thassa. Also, Chaotix does have some life gain in the deck. We did start a game up right before this. We got about 4 or 5 turns in, and then Magic Online had shut down for an update, which was unfortunate. We were just getting to the interesting part of the game, and I thought it was going to be really cool, but yep, that one got stopped dead in its tracks, but did get a brief look at Chaotix deck, and he does have a lot of things that burn life, but also a lot of things that gain life back, and also that does make sense with his commander, given the fact that it wants to pay life, so, you know. There's a Chandra Flamecaller. That is a sweet card. Does a lot of things. They're going to go for the elemental tokens right there. They're going to lose some life to the Rampaging Ferocidon. I guess we'll need to consider the Trophy Mage with Thassa thing with the Ferocidon. That will be losing life to that. And let's see what kind of attacking they do. A little bit into Chaotix and the tokens into Toshiro. Actually, it's going to be about 9 into Toshiro, so putting a little focus right there. Our plan worked of us hitting someone else, got them off our back, at least for this turn, so I can appreciate that. But they do tick up Chandra Flamecaller, and that is relevant because now it can do enough damage to kill our commander. So, you know, ideally, maybe thinking about Sword of Sinew and Steel, but we need to get another creature into play first. It's all stuff. It's all stuff. We'll see. Maybe some interaction out of Toshiro could change the scales a little bit here. Let's start planning ahead to see what we can get with the Trophy Mage. We can get a Metalworker. Metalworker's a pretty ridiculous card, right? We've got a host of swords to choose from. 4 to be exact. Brass Squire is fine. Foundry Spectre is fine. Helm of Cauldra is cool. Could be on Metalworker. I don't know. We'll see. I guess Feast and Famine's a pretty ridiculous card, though. Oh, that's a Sir Conrad. Okay. Yeah, that's not great. And Cadex is going to draw a card with the Underworld Connections land. Brings it back to our turn. We will need to pay our upkeep. That's a Mystic Forge. Oh, my. You know, we're not actually super well set up for that Mystic Forge, to be completely honest. Thinking Sword of Sinew and Steel right here. There's some things I think we want to get out of play. Valdok also going to be a little bit scary as long as that Rampaging Ferocidon sticks around. That's going to be a lot of life loss on us, making all those tokens, so things to consider. Maybe we're just on Kazul's Toll Collector so we can kind of move the equipments around a little bit easier. I don't think that's a bad one. So if we went Kazul's for 3, we could then move the boots, the sword, and then play this sword? Doesn't seem awful. I guess the thing is that then I'd want to get this sword onto, well, which one do we want to protect? We want to protect Kazul's or do we want to protect our commander? Tricky. Sword of Sinew and Steel does have some good targets. Primal Amulet, Whip of Erebos, both things that probably need to die. If we leave the Chandra Flamecaller alone and just kind of protect ourselves from it, I would imagine that they probably want to get rid of the Sir Conrad, or they just put a bunch of damage on someone. And that's a thing also. Ooh, you want to what? Whip of Erebos is not gaining any life currently because of the Rampaging Ferocidon, so maybe Primal Amulet is the primary target at first. Okay, I think it does have to be Kazul's right here if we want to do all this. Let's get Kazul's. Ferocidon will get us for 1. Ew, we don't have quite as much mana as I thought. Use the Kazul ability. Get the Sword of the Animist. Get the... Nope, wait on the Lightning Greaves. We have to use our commander for mana, which does mean that we won't be able to put the Sword of Sinew and Steel on it, which means I guess we just protect Kazul in that case. And let's put some Greaves on Kazul. You know what? They might not use the Chandra Flamecaller because it would get their stuff too. So we're probably just looking at more tokens. Still don't have any blockers. We can untap our commander. That's something, right? Doesn't help us like a ton because not so much on the instant speed artifacts, but it's a thing. Who are we attacking? Oh, Sinew and Steel blows up Planeswalkers. Okay. That being the case, let's hit GVR, I guess. Sword of the Animist will trigger. Go for another island. And I think we're about to get a really good look at Sinew and Steel and the potential of what it can do. Not that it's going to do this every time, but this is going to be 2 really high leverage targets, I think. So we hit Sword of Sinew and Steel trigger, blow up the Chandra, blow up the Primal Amulet. They will most certainly probably fire some removal in our direction now. Thassa onto the Dalakos. At least untap. Oh, we didn't change the zones. It doesn't come back. Oh, that makes me sad. Well. I always forget about that. Gotta love Magic Online. There's a Chandra Torch of Defiance. They're gonna add some red mana. There's a Gahiji. Ooh, Gahiji's scary. Gahiji makes, like, everything super lethal. Paging Ferocidon will trigger. But ideally, we're going to get some blockers into play, so we might actually be able to attack fish this turn. Here comes a Rampaging Ferocidon our way, and a Kataki's. Okay, well, it's going to hurt a bit with the Gahiji, but I think we're going to be coming back in their direction. Yeah, this is a hit for 9. No big deal. Can't gain life this moment. Swiftfoot Boots and Wayfarer's Bauble upkeeps. Cracks the Wayfarer's Bauble. Seems like a good time to do it. Toshiro just taps out and passes? Has nothing going on? Gonna Toshiro our way. This is gonna hurt. We need to protect ourselves. Could use some of our removal. Haven't seen any of it yet. We're down to 21. Whew. Do we have a life gain sword? We do not have a life gain sword. We do have a shadow spear. That's a card, right? But I don't think we have a way to tutor it at the moment. Oh, we could get it with Godo. Sir Conrad into the Chandra. Okay. So either Gahiji blocks or they let the Chandra go. Both are good. Gonna block with Gahiji. That's good news. Nope, not gonna block with Gahiji. Just gonna let Chandra go. Yeah, Gahiji represents a pretty good amount of damage right now. I wouldn't be super sad to see a board wipe. Anything to get Kataki out of play. Thespian stage, gonna cop. Oh, opponent's got 2 Cabal coffers now. No Urborg yet that I can see. Yeah, no Urborg. But they still got... Is this a swamp? That's a swamp. So, Cabal coffers is netting mana. Only 1 at the moment, but when you got 2 of them, and it'll get higher as the game goes along. Dark Prophecy, that's a card. Alright, so we're going to have 3 upkeep triggers now. Yeah, that Kataki's does need to go. So we'll pay 1, pay another 1, and pay 1 more after that. Strip Mine, lands are good. Play the Strip Mine. Don't think we need to shoot the Cabal coffers yet. I'm still trying to get my own mana base kind of going since we have to pay through all these... Right now I'm thinking Trophy Mage, get Feast and Famine, and do the Feast and Famine thing. Yeah, that feels like a plan to me. Because then after that, we can also just leave mana up for Thassa, and then we can tap down opponent's stuff so we don't get hit by a million things. Trophy Mage is going to trigger as it comes in. Glad that Hushbringer got shot early on. Get the old Feast and Famine. Play the old Feast and Famine. Opponents appear to be tapped out right now, so I'm not expecting any interaction. Move the boots over because we have to do that. Attach the Sword of Feast and Famine. Reattach the boots. Send a nice little poke over to Fish. Sword of the Animist will trigger. Let's get a mountain right here. 2 sword triggers. That's going to be a Feast and Famine and a Sinew and Steel. No Planeswalkers to shoot. We can't shoot an artifact. Whip of Erebos, probably the scariest one. Our lands untap. Got some choices here. We've got 8, 9, 10 mana. Mystic Forge, maybe? I think it might be Mystic Forge time. I think we need to start looking at more stuff. Well, there's a mana drain on top of our library. That's a pretty good one. Might need that at some point. Also gets us more mana, which I like. Love to draw... you know what, though? That's going to get shuffled away when we Trophy Mage. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we just leave it like that. So, go to the end step. Use Thassa on our Trophy Mage. Rampaging Frostodon will trigger. Trophy Mage will trigger. Fire and Ice is definitely the next one because Fire and Ice allows us to shoot the Katakis. There's a Mirror Works. I don't know if I'm like super in love with that one at this exact second, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what opponents do. So opponent just going to go to combat. We're going to Thassa the Gahiji. We'll leave 2 blue up, represent what could be counterspell mana. Just put it in our opponent's head. So Kataki's over to Chaotix and Rampaging Frostodon over to us. 5/3 is a little bit more damage than I want to be taking right now, so I think that Trophy Mage is going to go under... Oh, it's got Menace. Well, we can't block. All right, then. Now, this is getting scary because Sir Conrad's still in play, and there's a lot of reasons that could be a real problem for us, now being at 14. There's a Wrath of God. That's actually okay. Sir Conrad's still going to hurt quite a bit, though. Yeah, that's some triggers. Dark Prophecy will trigger. Looks like 4 or 5 Sir Conrad triggers and Toshiro triggers, which they are tapped out, so they can't do anything with. But we have Godo, and the fact that we already have boots means we can get Godo. I mean, we could Helm of the Host. I'm not going to do that, but if I were trying to win at all costs, I would go Helm of the Host. Maybe we get to work on our Cauldron package. Maybe that's the thing that we do. We've also got our Gentum Armor. Can solve some problems for us. Actually, you know what we need more than anything? We need Shadow Spear. Yeah, so I think it's going to be Godo for Shadow Spear and then get as many things equipped as we can. Shadow Spear legendary? I think it is, right? It is legendary. Thinking about exiling the Mirror Works. Like, there's a time and a place where Mirror Works is cool. But I just don't see us having the mana for it right now. It's such a mana-hungry card. But I don't know, like, we have Godo. Maybe we just draw it. I guess it's fine. Because if we have Godo and then we get like another equipment later, then we could potentially Mirror Works and all that sort of stuff. So Mirren Crusader into play for our opponent, and Toshiro is going to follow up with a Solemn Simulacrum. Just getting the lands going. Sword of the Animist. Boots onto the Solemn Simulacrum. Sure. Solemn Simulacrum in our way. We're at 10. This is going to hurt. Down to 8. Cool. Gotta hope Chaotix doesn't just have like a big drain life spell. Dread Presence is bad. Plays a land. I think they shot fish is what they did. I didn't see. Recover. Return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. It's going to be the Conrad. Yeah. So I'm definitely on the Shadow Spear right here. We need to gain life. Don't have pro white currently, so we can't really get into fish. Could get into Chaotix pretty hard, and maybe that's the thing we need to do. He has a lot of little pieces. He has Sir Conrad back. He has the Dark Prophecy. He's got card draw. He's now got whatever this thing does. Return another target creature from your graveyard to your hand. Yeah. Brings it back to our turn. There is the Mirror Works. There's a land on top of our deck. That's not going to help us so much. But let's get Godo into play. Opponent appear to be tapped out. It's good news for us. Not expecting too much interaction right here. It's a Godo. Use the ability. Get Shadow Spear into play. There's a Darksteel Forge on top of our deck. Equip the Shadow Spear. Equip the Feast and Famine. Equip the Lightning Greaves. Take a shot over to Chaotix. Godo will trigger and give himself an extra combat. So we get a sort of Feast and Famine trigger. The one thing we can do at instant speed is use the Thassa ability before the next untap. Could go Chaotix again. We do have Trample, which means we can trample over the Mirren Crusader. Or actually, we can also just tap it out in the meantime. So let's take a shot over to Fish. Use the Thassa ability. Get ourselves back up to 20. It's not too bad. We got the Feast and Famine trigger on the stack. We'll Thassa some other stuff. Reassembling Skeleton's the one he's probably going to block with most likely. So we'll go for that. Do we strip mine something right here? There's 2 coffers in play. I mean, that could cause problems. It's not making tons and tons of mana yet, though. Like, I'll be completely honest, I don't feel super safe at 20 life. I think I'm going to go for the Darksteel Forge. It's a big play. It's a little risky. All that stuff. I know. Well, that apparently leaves us with exactly the strip mine. Reality Shift on top of our deck. That is one that I would like to draw. Thassa target, no legal target. We may strip mine something of Chaotix. Can't decide if I want the card draw land or a coffers. Oh, this is Gahiji back to play. This Mirren Crusader is going to hurt. Oh, we could die. Yep. Double strike our way. Gahiji. Down to 12. Ooh. Yeah, Gahiji's going to wreck our day. So the question is, what do our other opponents want to do? Sir Conrad's coming back. A board wipe is really bad, although everyone's life is starting to get pretty low. Sir Conrad is bad for everyone. Sword of the Animist onto Solemn Simulacrum. So here's a tough call on that Solemn Simulacrum. You attack, you get a land off of Sword of the Animist, but you lose the blocker. Which means people can just come into you, and Gahiji's still in play. So Solemn Simulacrum coming our way. It's not good. It's going to be a hit for 5. We are down to 7. Chaotix could have lethal on us. And opponent's going to Undying Evil on the Solemn Simulacrum. Board wipe. Mutilate. I'm down for that. We have survived. Yeah, it's pretty good on the Solemn Simulacrum right there. Draw a card, get another land. Dark Prophecy will trigger 3 times. Puts the boots back onto the Solemn Simulacrum. Good news is the board wipe gets rid of most of the things that were looking to kill us, so I appreciate that. Chaotix getting 8 mana off of the Cabal coffers for 4 lands tapped. Seems pretty good. It's a Phyrexian Altar. That's a combo piece. Bronze Bombshell. There's one you don't see. Whenever a player other than Bronze Bombshell's owner controls it, that player sacrifices it. If that player does, it deals 7 damage to them. Oh, crap. Alright, so he's got a sack outlet. He can he give it to us? He can give it to us. Of course he can. Yep, there it is. Endless Whispers, Dark Prophecy, draws a card, loses a life. It's an Endless Whispers deck. Yeah, we were talking about it the other day in chat. Alright. He's totally giving this thing to us. Yep, here it is. Alright, well, we're strip mining something. Strip mine the land. Brings back reassembling skeleton. Sacrifices the reassembling skeleton. Oh man, if we get instant speed, equip the shadow spear to the bombshell, then when it does the damage, we should gain the life back. How do we gain a life? We need to gain a life somehow. Yep, here comes the Endless Whispers triggers. We now have a bronze bombshell. And we die to it. Oh, God. So the problem in this game is that we became the archenemy for a period of time. Also, Gahiji just does a lot of damage. And Kataki's War Wage was absolutely terrible for us, being an artifact deck and all. It slowed us down a lot at the beginning. We would have gotten off to the races pretty good with Sword of the Animist. We would have been like probably 2 turns quicker, I think, attacking with the sword. Opponent Natures claims the Endless Whispers. Huatli Warrior Poet into play. Chaotic says, thanks to Fish wiping the board, he drew the Bronze Bombshell and the Endless Whispers. Dread Presence for Toshiro. Sword of the Animist onto Dread Presence. Move the boots. Dread Presence trigger. Gonna do 2 damage to the Huatli. They did make a dinosaur with it, by the way. And Fish does have control of Chaotic's reassembling skeleton. Yeah, I think we probably would have been much better off just, instead of the Darksteel Forge, just getting some blockers into play. You know, tough call if someone has like a Vandal Blast, namely Fish, or some sort of white board wipe, then losing all of our artifacts is obviously very bad, so, you know, you want to get that level of protection, but the ability of Gahiji to make even small creatures just do a lot of damage is really strong, so, you know, even from 20 life, no life total, really safe at that point. And even when we got back to 20, I didn't feel all that safe, kind of knowing that either. Would have been much happier at 30. Night's Whisper for our opponent. Castle Locktwain for Chaotix. Sir Conrad into play. Nether Trader into play. Oh, that's bad for them. Nether Trader, Sack Outlet, Sir Conrad. That's some damage. Does it come back? It comes back whenever another creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield. Okay, so they'll need another creature. Theoretically, they could kill the reassembling skeleton and get that back somehow. So they sacrifice it to draw a card, the Nether Trader. Sir Conrad triggers. Elixir of Immortality, yeah, that's a good one at this point in the game. Vraska's Contempt on... Oh, on the Huatli. Okay, yeah. Gonna activate Gavany Township. These creatures getting bigger. Got a 4/4 with Trample and a 2/2, and with everyone being at low life, it's relevant. It's pretty relevant. Fish pretty much out of cards, though. 1 card in hand. Doesn't have the mana for their commander. But can still put a hurting on people. The Dinosaur into Chaotix. He's going to have to be careful here because he has a lot of life loss effects. And he can gain 5 life back just fine. But, you know, he's still at 16. 4 right here. Dread Presence probably going to get some damage in on someone unless he needs to draw cards. You know. Even these, like, small to medium-sized threats are fairly threatening when there's this much stuff going on. He's going to block with Sir Conrad. He seems to have a lot of ways to get things back, so it's probably not too much of a big deal for him. That creates Sir Conrad triggers, allows Nether Trader to trigger, Dark Prophecy will trigger. Don't think he has the black mana. Bring back the Nether Trader. Doesn't look like it. But draws more cards. He's been drawing cards like crazy this game. GVR untaps with a whole bunch of mana and some, like, reasonable stuff in play right now. He could attack either opponent for about half their life. Rise of the Dark Realms. That's going to be a lot of things. The Rampaging Ferocidon might kill him. And Fish is going to Chaos Warp on the Swiftfoot Boots, so at least nothing will have haste, theoretically. I'm not aware of every single creature coming in, but assume no haste. At some point, an Isochron Scepter came down. Didn't see that. Oh, so they got an Isochron Scepter off of the Chaos Warp. Didn't imprint anything, so apparently no kill spells in hand, or at least one's at 2 mana. That's a lot of things. We've got Solemn Simulacrum. We've got the Dread Presence was already there. Sir Conrad, Nether Trader, Angel of Finality, Corpse Hauler, Dread Presence, a second Dread Presence, Mirror and Crusader, Rampaging Ferocidon. However, Hushbringer stops those triggers from happening so they don't lose all their life. Kataki's War Wage, you're going to be some nasty upkeeps on artifacts. The Bronze Bombshell did come into play and they had to sacrifice it. Goes down to 7. They just play a Swamp right here. They're going to do some damage with the Dread Presence Eye. So going on the attack with Solemn Simulacrum and Dread Presence into Chaotix. There comes the Swamp. Ooh, Swamp off the sword. Yeah, there you go. 2 Dread Presence triggers. But yeah, the Hushbringer stopping the Rampaging Ferocidon. I think they would have actually died because of the damage from the Ferocidon and the Bombshell together. I think kills them. I think Hushbringer also going to be very good against what Chaotix is doing. Beside the fact that he just went down, well, he went to 8. Okay. Alter and Immortality will now have upkeep triggers on them. Chaotix is going to play in Garrick's Wake. Sir Conrad triggers a whole bunch of times. Nether Trader triggers. Solemn Simulacrum triggers. That is interesting because Hushbringer should have stopped that, right? I don't know the exact timing on that. Does anyone know that? If you're wiping the board and Hushbringer's in play, Hushbringer should have stopped that. Chaotix says yes. Well, that seems like a bug. Fish believes it should have as well. And GVR wins the match because of the Sir Conrad triggers. Someone weigh in if they know how that ruling is supposed to work. Pretty interesting stuff. Congrats to GVR. Don't know if they were technically supposed to have it right there. Interesting game nonetheless. Big Rise of the Dark Realms, big in Garrick's Wake. All pretty spicy. Anyway, as far as our deck is concerned, we are so unbelievably soft to creature attacks. So that's a thing we want to patch up right here. Let's get a Thaumatic Compass into this deck. And honestly, I think we need a Maze of Ith also. What are we taking out? I have no idea. This Storm the Vault. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token at the beginning of your end step if you have 5 or more. With no additional ability to make treasures that I can see, I don't like our chances of actually flipping that over. Storm the Vault coming out. If we were using more treasure cards, and maybe we should be, then it's obviously very good. One thing we could do, we could use a Blink Moth Urn in place of that instead. It's not quite like Tolarian, and it does help your opponents a little bit, but it should help us much more than it does help the opponents, so that's one that you could look at. What else do we need in terms of protection? So, all right. One thing we can do, we can compare what I saw from Dalakos this game to all of the Boros Voltron that I've ever played, and Dalakos is cool, I'll give it that. That ability to make some mana is very interesting. The flying and haste, also very cool. The problems I see is that the fact that you want to tap Dalakos to make more mana means that you don't necessarily want to be equipping Dalakos all the time, because if you're tapping it for the mana, then you can't also be attacking with him. And, that's not the best, so it means that you need another creature in play, and it's just a little awkward. It's cool, it's cool that you get to make more mana, but the fact that you probably want to be suiting something else up is awkward, and you could potentially lose a turn to that type of stuff. If you have to mess around with that early in the game, it can matter. The other thing is that white is really good at Double Strike and Vigilance, and those felt like things that were missing. If we could have given Godo Double Strike with the Shadow Spear, we would have gained a relevant amount of life that we don't die to the Bronze Bombshell right there. And, congrats to Chaotix with getting a kill on Endless Whisper's Bronze Bombshell, because that's not something you see every day, but yeah. Double Strike and Vigilance were something that I felt was sorely lacking here, because that's what really puts Voltron decks over the top. We were doing okay damage with our swords, but it wasn't particularly quick. And I guess it also means, maybe Recipe for Aggravated Assault, just to have something to close the game out a little quicker. We do have Godo. Is there Helm of the Host in this deck? No Helm of the Host in this deck. Since I've added Godo from the original list, you can now add Helm of the Host. Would make a lot of sense if you want that win condition in the deck. Stormtide Leviathan would have been helpful at some point in the game. We didn't see our red removal the way that I would have liked to. We have a Magma Quake and a Blasphemous Act. We've also got Ether Spouts, Ether Eyes, Cyclonic Rift. Maybe just another piece of hard creature removal. Well, I guess on the other hand, we have Ugin and All Is Dust, and yeah, those are good board wipes. I guess it's just a matter of we didn't run into anything. We didn't draw cards the way we wanted to. Perhaps another piece of card draw would be good as well. Maybe it was just bad luck, but I wasn't particularly impressed by Mystic Forge right here. Maybe there's not quite enough artifacts in this deck to really be a Mystic Forge deck. That could be a question. But if you ever get Mystic Forge with Ugin, things can get pretty out of hand. Have mixed feelings about Valduk. Yeah, it's cool if you put a bunch of things on it, but I don't like the fact that the 3/1s don't stick around, and it'd probably be a little too crazy if they did, but It does a lot of damage, but it doesn't give you a lot of blocking. It's also weird in that, like, with Voltron, usually you're trying to, like, Voltron with your commander, and it's a weird way to split damage out. I don't know. Mixed feelings on the Valduk. One interesting thing I was thinking about during the game, and this would be like, you know, this wouldn't be like the primary thing, but it would be an interesting line of play, is you could put Windfall in this deck and or Jace's Archivist. And if someone draws a lot of cards, you can Windfall and then potentially go for a Sword of War and Peace and then just do insane amounts of damage to them. It's a thing you could do, beside the fact that, like, Windfall is just good on its own. War and Peace is very solid on its own also. Also, you'd gain a ton of life if you're doing that too. So that could be a cute little trick. I think I'll add that in. I'm going to go Windfall over this Blue Sun Zenith. Got Argentum Armor in the deck. Argentum Armor is cool, but it is so unbelievably expensive. Even in that game, with all the lands we had, I don't think we could have actually gotten it to work. Like, the best case scenario is that you have, like, 12 mana, you cast Godo, have 6 to equip it, and then have Lightning Greaves. Ugh. I guess if Dalakos is in play, then that gives you a little bit more mana, and it'll also take care of the haste, which is important with Godo. There's a lot of, like, little interesting choices you can make. The other thing you can do, too, is you can just load up on red swords and just put a ton of red board wipes in the deck, which is not a terrible plan either. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of options for this deck. You have a lot of choices you can make about what kind of cards you want. You know what? Mirrorworks is coming out. Mirrorworks is so unbelievably slow. Such a hard thing to get to stick into play. Other thoughts. I was surprised about how easily we just got crushed by other creature decks. So, like, having some plan against other creature decks is definitely going to be a place to be. Having some ability to block. Again, the lack of vigilance. There are some blue cards with vigilance, but the lack of vigilance on your Voltron-y commander is not amazing. And I think that's one thing that makes Aurelia really good, is they can block. Same thing with Sir Gwyn. Sir Gwyn attacks, it also blocks. So that stops one big creature from coming your way. Now, if there's multiple things, then obviously that still works, but yeah. So overall, I think it's a very interesting commander. It's kind of a new style of play with Izzet equipment. I think it's missing some of the pieces that really make Boros equipment very good. Like I said, the double strike and the vigilance. But you are playing blue, which means there are many ways around those things. So, I think you'll have to figure some of that out. Without the double strike, it doesn't appear to kill as fast as Boros equipments, because Boros is all about the double strike, the extra combats, things like that. Maybe this deck needs some extra combats in it. We've got Godo currently. Maybe another one somewhere else wouldn't be the worst idea. Aggravated Assault is probably the right one because of Feast and Famine. So see if we can't work that in somewhere. Wasn't impressed by the Mystic Forge. Mystic Forge coming out. It is an enchantment, which is, like, not the easiest thing to find in these colors, but you can find most of the other stuff in the deck. Just hope you draw a lot of cards. A Mask of Memory would probably not be terrible for this deck either. But again, more choices, so all very tricky. So yeah, more playtesting needed here. A lot of cards and a lot of, like, little different things you can focus in on. Blue just has a lot of powerful options to begin with. Fabricate's not even in the deck, but we have a lot of the mages, which are cool too. Word of Invention, also not in the deck. Very well could be. But, maybe it's a little bit mana intense for what it does, but yeah. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.